Hello and welcome to Indus News Live from Alamdar. I am Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. The US military says the Taliban have gained strategic momentum in Afghanistan as they now control half of the countryside. US top General Mark Milley says the group has captured 419 districts and encircled 17 provincial capitals. Talking to reporters, he said the fighting between Afghan forces and the Taliban is expected to escalate in the coming weeks. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim to have captured the strategic Marja district in Helmand province. The US and Germany have reached a deal on Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. In a joint statement, the two said they will hold Russia to account by imposing sanctions if it uses the project as geopolitical leverage. They have also committed to support Kiev and make investments of at least $1 billion in the Green Front for Ukraine. At least 17 Bengali migrants have drowned in a shipwreck off Tunisia as they tried to cross the Mediterranean to Italy. Tunisian Red Crescent says the boat had set off from Libya carrying migrants from Syria, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Mali and Bangladesh. The humanitarian organization says more than 380 were rescued by the Tunisian Coast Guard. China says it is against politicizing the matter of COVID-19 origins and will not follow the World Health Organization's plan on the study. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded over 1,400 daily deaths from the virus and more than 54,000 new cases. In Pakistan, 40 people have died while over 2,100 tested positive in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and infected over 191 million people. Well, those were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The US military says the Taliban have gained strategic momentum in Afghanistan as they now control half the countryside. US top General Mark Milley says the group has captured 419 districts and encircled 17 provincial capitals. Talking to reporters, he said the fighting between Afghan forces and the Taliban is expected to escalate in the coming weeks. Milley said there is a possibility of a negotiated outcome as well as of Taliban takeover. The top US general said the situation is a test of the will of the Afghan leadership, the security forces and people. He reiterated Washington's resolve to continue support to the Afghan government and the security forces. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim to have captured strategic Marja district in Helmand province. In a tweet, a spokesperson said the group also seized a large number of weapons and vehicles. The US and Germany have reached a deal on Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. The two say they will hold Russia accountable by imposing sanctions if it uses the project as geopolitical leverage. In a joint statement, they committed to support Kiev and make investments of at least $1 billion in the Green Front for Ukraine. The agreement stated Germany will provide an initial donation to the fund of at least $175 million. It read Berlin will also actively ensure Moscow and Kiev extend a gas transit agreement. Meanwhile, Ukraine has started official consultations with the European Union and Germany about the pipeline project. Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba said the decision has created political, military and energy threats for Ukraine and Central Europe. Earlier, German Chancellor Angela Merkel spoke on the phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin hours before the deal. Ahead of the deal's announcement, US President Joe Biden also spoke with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky. Nearly 98% complete, the $11 billion Nord Stream 2 pipeline will carry gas under the Baltic Sea from Russia to Germany. Ukraine fears Russia will use energy as a weapon against the country and losing fees as a transit point for gas supplies. At least 17 Bengali migrants have drowned in a shipwreck off Tunisia as they tried to cross the Mediterranean to Italy. Tunisian Red Crescent said the boat had set off from Zawara on Libya's northwest coast. It said the ship was carrying migrants from Syria, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Mali and Bangladesh. The humanitarian organization added more than 380 were rescued by the Tunisian Coast Guard. Recently, several migrants have drowned in the Mediterranean as improved weather increased the attempted crossings to Europe. Syria says its air defenses have intercepted an Israeli attack on the Al-Qusayr area in the western Homs province. State media quoted the military as saying they shot down most of the missiles. It said the strikes caused no casualties, but only material damage. The Israeli military said it had no comment on the incident. This comes days after Damascus air defenses intercepted a barrage of Israeli missiles over Al-Safira in southern Aleppo. In Pakistan, the coronavirus has claimed 40 more lives in the last 24 hours, while the death toll nears 23,000. The health ministry says more than 2,100 people tested positive overnight. It said the caseload has crossed 998,000, of which nearly 923,000 have recovered. The ministry said there are more than 52,000 active cases and nearly 2,500 are critical. It said more than 24 million doses of the COVID-19 vaccine have been administered so far, and over 6.8 million people have been fully vaccinated. China says it is against politicizing the matter of COVID-19 origins and will not follow the World Health Organization's plan on the study. Meanwhile, Brazil has recorded over 1,400 daily deaths from the virus and more than 54,000 new cases. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 4 million lives and infected over 191 million people. More in this report. The COVID-19 cases have nearly tripled in the U.S. over the last 2 weeks amid an onslaught of vaccine misinformation. U.S. President Joe Biden expressed pointed frustration over the slowing COVID-19 vaccination rate in the country. He pleaded that it is gigantically important for Americans to step up and get inoculated against the virus as it surges once again. Meanwhile, YouTube has removed videos from Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro's channel for spreading misinformation about the coronavirus. Over in Australia, daily cases have spiked again despite a weeks-long lockdown, while authorities warned that infections would rise more.
And we can't stress enough how contagious, it's cruel the way this virus is contagious. Any human contact means you can pick up the virus or give the virus. It is spreading like we've never seen before. And I especially want to thank our contact tracers, because if it was not for their efforts, the 124 case numbers today would literally have been in their thousands, and I don't say that lightly.
South Korea has also reported its highest ever daily increase in coronavirus cases. Meanwhile, Tokyo 2020 organizers say 2 more athletes residing in the Olympic Village tested positive for COVID-19. The situation in Europe is not so different as well. Government's figures show the number of COVID-19 patients admitted to hospital in England has reached its highest level for nearly 5 months. While in Greece, protesters and police clashed outside Athens' parliament during a rally against vaccinations. In France, the public as well as the opposition continue to protest against the implementation of a health pass and compulsory vaccinations.
We need other things than a monarch who from his Elysee palace gives orders to his subjects, who in 10 minutes goes back on his promises of the previous day. Instead of targeting, you are showering people with vaccines, even the children, teenagers who have no interest in being vaccinated. Instead, you set up social constraints. Everyone tracks everyone, everywhere in restaurants, cafes, commercial centers, movie theaters, but you restrain freedoms.
Tunisia's Prime Minister Hichem Mechechi admitted that the government's response to the pandemic has been criminal. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia has announced to ban all direct or indirect travel by citizens to Indonesia over concerns about the outbreak there. In the United States, health officials say life expectancy has declined by 1.5 years during 2020. This is the largest annual decline since World War II. Center for Disease Control and Prevention figures show an average lifespan dropped last year to 77.3 years from 78.8. The COVID-19 pandemic and drug overdoses pushed life expectancy down. More than 3.3 million Americans died last year, far more than any other year in U.S. history. The data comes amid a resurgence of COVID-19 cases, with daily deaths now almost 50% higher than last week. More than 600,000 Americans have died so far during the pandemic. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko says the U.S., along with its European allies, is behind the provocations against Minsk. In an interview, he accused the intelligence services of executing the agenda being formulated by Western politicians. Referring to the attempted coup and his assassination, Lukashenko noted it was only possible under sanctions on the top leadership of the country. The president also took aim at Germany for what he called management of terrorists acting in Belarus. He underscored that the West, led by Washington, will not allow Belarus to be a sovereign state. However, Minsk will defend its right to independently define its policies. The EU has ruled out the renegotiation of the Brexit deal on the Northern Ireland Protocol as demanded by the UK. EU Commission's Vice President Maros Sefcovic said protocol cannot be redrawn, as the argued British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and other UK officials had negotiated it. He said respecting international legal obligations is of paramount importance. Earlier, London demanded that Brussels agree to rewrite a deal overseeing problematic trade involving Northern Ireland. Britain said the Northern Ireland Protocol was flawed at conception. The protocol requires checks on goods between the British mainland and Northern Ireland, which remains part of the EU customs area. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. In South Africa, the death toll from unrest has risen to 276 following violent protests linked to the arrest of former President Jacob Zuma. The government says at least 40,000 businesses were looted, burned or vandalized during widespread rioting. The rampage later spread to Johannesburg, inflicting a devastating blow to an economy already battered by the coronavirus. The total losses to the national economy are estimated to be $3.4 billion. In Pakistan, authorities have stopped an operation to rescue a private cargo vessel which got stuck off Karachi coast. Authorities say the operation has been called off due to bad weather. The vessel, Hang Tong, belongs to a Hong Kong-based shipping company. It lost anchors and started drifting towards shallow waters after offloading at the Karachi port. The vessel later got stuck due to high sea waves and faulty engine. As America's 20-year-long war in Afghanistan approaches its end, U.S. veterans say blood spilled in the country was wasted. Watch this report.
Americans generally have different estimations about the war, but Lily and other Marines who served in Afghanistan have compared it with the conflict in Vietnam. They say both the wars had no clear objective. Jason Lilly was a U.S. Marine raider who fought multiple battles in Iraq and Afghanistan. The perspectives of Lilly and other veterans can help inform nations about the costs of entering a war. Lilly expresses love for his country, but disgust at its politician and dismay at the blood and the money squandered.
100% we lost the war. I mean, the Taliban already taken over one of the major passes like this week and getting money from this choke point of Tajikistan. So, and we're not even out yet. Like, the Taliban will take over. It's who's going to be there to stop them, you know? Like, so the whole point was to get rid of the Taliban. We didn't do that. I mean, really make it really simple. Did we do that? No.
The Afghan conflict has claimed more than 3,500 U.S. and allied military lives. The war also led to the killing of more than 47,000 Afghan civilians and 66,000 troops. Lilly says he grew to understand why historians have called Afghanistan the graveyard of empires.
Yeah, there was a point where I couldn't even look at the flag. I mean, it took me a few years to like really let go of like my anger and like, not want to say I felt used, but I did at the same time. Like, I knew what I was getting into. I wanted this. Like, I grew up on Rambo. I grew up on a lot of these movies, but I wanted to like honor my family in the sense, you know, my grandpa fought in World War II.
Americans generally have different estimations about the war, but Lilly and other Marines who served in Afghanistan have compared it with the conflict in Vietnam. They say both wars had no clear objective.
Russia has successfully launched its largest space module to the International Space Station. It is scheduled to dock with the Zvezda module at the ISS on the 29th of July. A Proton M carrier rocket carrying the module blasted off from Cosmodrome Baikonur in Kazakhstan. The module dubbed Nauka will provide the astronauts with additional storage space and technical equipment. It also supplies an ERA manipulator which will allow astronauts to avoid some of the open space missions. Shares in the Asia-Pacific are trading higher with markets in Japan closed for a holiday. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is leading the gains, rising more than 1.5%. Mainland Chinese stocks edged higher, with the Shanghai Composite climbing close to 0.5%. While the Shenzhen component rose fractionally, South Korea's Kospi gained more than 1%. Elsewhere, the ASX 200 in Australia also advanced 1%. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.